Welcome to the podcast that buffs your Hearthstone game. This is Velen's Chosen.
Not all who wander are lost.
Greetings, visionaries, and welcome to Velen's Chosen. Whether you're a competitive player, an arena specialist, a deck-building visionary, a battlegrounds master, or you just like having a bit of fun, we can help you buff your game and achieve your Hearthstone goals. I am Grant Gould, and I am so excited. I have a very special guest with me tonight. Please welcome to the show, Educated Collins. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Just glad to be honored to be joined and maybe impart some knowledge to your viewers or so.
Well, I'm definitely sure that that's going to be happening tonight. So before we get into sort of the meat of the show, let's get to know you a little bit better. So how did you get into Hearthstone gaming? If you want to just kind of give us a little story about like how you got into this wonderful community and whatnot that we spend so much time in.
Okay. So I've got two brothers, and we've always like kind of played together, you know, just growing up. And there was always like, so for my older brother, he's always like better at like racing games and stuff. Like my younger brother, he's always better at like fighting games. And when it came to me, I was always better at like strategy games. So anytime we were playing like board games or any strategy games, right? We'd play it once, I'd win, and then they'd stop playing with me. They're like, all right, well, he's figured it how to beat everyone, so no more of this game anymore. So I kind of had to kind of branch out and like play with other people. So I was really into card games when I was growing up. Yu-Gi-Oh was really big for me, so I spent a lot of time just kind of like making decks and kind of strategizing, and then, you know, taking these decks, fighting other people. I remember we'd have these little competitions where we take our random decks, play against each other, and if you win, you get to take one of your opponent's cards.
Like old school Magic.
So we would come in, I would win, and just take their cards, and then use those improved cards to beat others. And just like amass the best deck with the opponent's cards. Because when you beat them, you cripple them as well. So it got a lot easier. So I've just been... my love of card games, it just really grew from playing with my brothers and playing with other people. And when I saw Hearthstone was coming out, I was like super excited. Oh my God, you know, let's go. I've never really been a constructive person. Always been like a... you know, creative, make your own deck kind of thing, limited format. Sure. Just because I felt like it was, I could do more in terms of, it wasn't like a solved meta, and you had to kind of use like different strategies every single time you make a new deck and things like that. So, really excited for the arena mode. Watched a lot of streamers, and then, as soon as it came out into like public beta, I immediately started trying to learn, and kind of went from there. And I've dabbled into lots of other card games as well, but Hearthstone's been like my focus throughout the like last 5 or so years since it's been out. So
you've been playing since beta, basically.
Yeah, I've been playing since forever.
That's awesome. And you would say that arena, at least traditionally, has been more the format you favor?
Yeah, any game, any card game, the limited format's always the format I gravitate towards. Like I might try Constructed, like I did play Constructed when it first came out, but I always just find myself getting drawn back into a more limited format, a more arena format, no matter what game I play. So,
do you when you stream, is that what you typically stream as arena?
Yeah, usually when I'm streaming, well, right now, you know, there's a new mode.
Right, of course.
So, you know, but, you know, generally, you know, before like a week and a half ago, I would traditionally be streaming Arena of some sort.
That's great. That's great. So, what is your opinion? I mean, I know you've been playing Battlegrounds like the rest of us forever, but what's your opinion of the Arena meta and like how the format has, it's gone through some iterations, some changes. They tried this, they've tried that. What's your opinion as the current status, I guess, of the Arena right now?
Okay, so right now initially there was no buckets. A bucket is where each card has its own like tier rating, and a lot of the cards with the same tier are put into the same rating, so you'll see similar power levels of cards. And first there was none of that, then they added that, and recently they've removed it again, and now you can randomly see any power level of cards next to each other. There are a lot of people in the media community who liked the buckets, even though it wasn't implemented as well as they would have hoped. So now that the buckets are gone again, they're kind of like, I did kind of like the buckets, even though I wasn't happy with how it was implemented. But me personally, I haven't really cared too much about whether there were buckets or not. I don't think it really mattered for me, but I do want to mention that a lot of people that I talked to and stuff like that, they really did like the buckets. But in terms of the gameplay, they removed the basic and classic set, which had a lot of like powerful cards that you were used to. So now, due to that, kind of the balancing in the Arena is a little wonky. There are like a couple classes that are generally way better than some of the other classes that are generally always struggling. So
right, like Warrior.
That feels feels kind of bad for if you like to play different classes and do well with multiple classes. So, in terms due to the Battlegrounds edition, right, there hasn't been a lot of like outrage or things like that. People have just been like distracted,
right.
But I think once the new expansion hits and people start like trying Arena again with the new meta and new cards, there might be more discussion and talk about where the state of Arena and where it's heading. So
cool. Yeah, and I'm interested to see how that goes. All right, well, great. Let me think here. Okay, so a couple little fun shotgun questions. What's your favorite card just in Hearthstone of all time? Like the card you just love seeing, whether it's Arena, Constructed, or whatever. Like what card do you like the best?
What's my favorite card?
I'm just surprising you. Like, here you go, catch.
I don't know. I have three answers. I know my favorite card at the first season, like the beginning before all expansions, it was Fire Elemental. I know that was my favorite. All right, so now it's changed because the pile of Fire Elementals like dwindled a little bit in recent memory. There's a card that I have a Twitch emote of for some strange reason, which is what is Oracle? It's the Priest 1-mana 1/1 that gives you a random card from your opponent's deck. Something Oracle.
Priest 1/1 that gives a random card from your opponent's deck. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name either. It's not a well-known
I can't
card.
either. I have an emote for it, and I don't know the name either. And then
good, man.
I would say maybe the card that I find the most fun while playing is probably Curious Glimmerroot. It's a priest mana 3/3 that you discover a random card from your opponent's deck, and if you get it right, then it's yours. And it adds a lot of like interesting. Oh, is it this? Is it that? Is it what do I want?
Right.
Like,
what do you want?
Not
what should you pick?
yeah. What is he likely to have, and what do I want right now? There's a lot of fun decision makings in that card like that. So I think those three answers would be my.
I would be lying if I said I never accidentally thought, what is the card that I want of these three versus what is he likely to have in his deck or her deck, depending.
Honestly, picking the card you want is not a bad option because, like, sometimes you know the card you pick, but it's not actually really going to help you win the game. Where if you get this card that you want, even though it's a legendary and they don't have it, they do have it, ooh, I have won the game now, and that is a good. It's a good strategy sometimes.
Is it a good question to ask chat and say, hey chat, which one should I pick?
No, don't listen to chat.
Chat, okay.
Chat doesn't know. Chat will always troll. At least my chat doesn't doesn't in terms of in battlegrounds they're actually kind of helpful. Sometimes I forget to freeze or roll. They're actually kind of. But when it comes to arena, I have a lot of experience, and it's like I know they're just trolling me here. I will go with the wisdom and pick the card that makes a lot of sense. So
That's great. Well, let's see. So let's move on a little bit. So we got some Hearthstone news. So we're getting into battlegrounds like pretty much from here on out. Just kind of
makes
frame
a lot of sense.
Yeah, because that's what everybody cares about. I mean, I guess there's something, I've heard whispers of, Shaman and Evolve being a problem. Actually, that's all I hear about other than Battlegrounds. So it's either hyper negative ladder experiences from everybody and their, brothers, mothers, uncles, cousin, whatever. And then Battlegrounds hype and happiness and joy from the community, which levels of this I have not seen in many, many years. So let's kick it off. So they today the 19th, they have updated some new. They've rotated some heroes out and they've put some changes and some nerfs and buffs into Battlegrounds already. Bodes well for the format. What we're going to do is let's kind of walk through some of the new heroes that have been introduced. One of the first hero up that we have is Sindragosa. It reads, hero power is passive hero power, so that's cool. At the end of your turn, frozen minions get a +1/+1 buff. So it seems like, if you see some minions you want to keep for your next turn, you freeze them and they automatically get a buff. What's your take on this one?
Yeah, I've played a little bit actually since they had the patch. And I actually really like Sindragosa. It has a lot of power in the early game, which I really prioritize myself as a player. I really think just not taking that early game damage can do so much for you. That safety net of health that you can accrue really means that you'll die later than your opponents. Even if you don't win, you won't be last and you won't lose a gigantic amount of LP. So I like the power level in the early game, being able to freeze the first couple turns and not lose too much value, right? Once you hit the mid and late game, especially the later game, you stop using her ability because you rather roll for like more key pieces for your composition. But definitely the early game power can give you like an extra 10 health over your opponents, which can be relevant. So I do like this hero.
Cool. All right, let's see. Up next is Elise Starseeker. Cool. They're using like some of the League of Explorers for this. So we have hers is also a passive hero power. It says when you upgrade Bob's Tavern, get a recruitment map. So recruitment map basically recruits minions from the current tavern. It upgrades. It recruits a minion after you upgrade the tavern tier. What's your thoughts on this one?
So the recruitment map is 3 gold. So
it's 3 gold. That's right.
Yeah. So it basically lets you discover a minion from the current tavern. You're not really gaining like any gold value. It's more of a consistency hero where you can get a key piece for whatever tavern. So let's say you're Tavern 2, maybe you're looking for Amalgam. You have a chance to hit it. Tier 3, maybe you're looking for like Kobo. Tier 4, maybe you're looking for like Inoria Module or anything like that. So it doesn't add any power level to your games, but it gives you an element of consistency that you can rely on. So it's not like an OP hero that's gonna break the game, because you could have just been lucky and just got in the shop exactly what you needed and you didn't need to recruit a map at all. But for some of the games where you're not going to hit exactly what you need, the recruitment map gives you the chance to get those key pieces early and then go from there. So it's not an OP hero, right? But it's not a horrible hero. It's just like
maybe like what, a tier 2, tier 3 hero possibly?
Yeah, maybe tier 2, tier 3. Like it's better than some.
Right, certainly. So okay, up next is Bran Bronzebeard, our friend. Hero power reads, after you play a battle cry minion, give a random friendly minion +1/+1. So this one seems kind of, man, it seems like it's very oddly specific in making sure you better have battle cry cards. I don't know. Is this one terribly useful? It seems like it could be really swing and a miss if you're not pulling the right cards.
This one seems busted.
Really?
Yeah, this guy seems very OP. At least how we play in the late game stuff. Because he's relevant throughout the whole game. There's lots of battlecry minions early, and a lot of the time in the late game, you're kind of like buying battlecry minions, buffing your minions, selling the battlecry, buying more battlecries,
okay.
buffing. So you're instead of like the battlecry minion giving you a +2/+2 in stats, now it's giving you +3/+3 in stats. You can also turn one, buy any of the battlecry minions, the token minions that you really want. You buy the token minion. Oh look, now they're buffed. They beat other token minions that usually will tie. Now you're winning and you're ahead. So even in the first turn, his ability is insane because he can win your game where you usually draw, and then in the late game, he makes those +2/+2s into +3/+3s. If you have brand as well, then the +4/+4s is now like +5/+5, +6/6, +6/6. So he seems very, very good and probably the strongest of the four in my opinion. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad to be wrong on that then, because that's I just maybe it's just the way I play, and maybe I just don't focus on Battlecry. Maybe I'm sure I had a one-sided thought on that, but I like your idea on that, and how I hadn't thought about it being, it's really like you can make a 2+2+2+3+3, and that's like, oh yeah, that would be really hard to overcome if you have a lot of that going on, and if you're cycling properly, I suppose. Okay, juxtapose that one. I haven't heard good things about this one, but Sir Finley, poor Sir Finley, give a random friendly minion +1/+1 after you sell a minion. Refresh this. What do you think?
I think this is probably the hardest one to use.
Oh, yeah?
So, and also the main issue I have with this, I actually don't think he's that bad, but the main issue I have with him is that he doesn't do anything in the early game realistically. A lot of the, if his hero power was targeted, like you could choose where you wanted to buff it, then there's a lot of strength there, right? Because then you can kind of guide, okay, I will just buff up the Divine Shield guy or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm getting double value. But since it's random, you don't really have any control. And in the early game, the miniature buying, you're not guaranteed to be keeping, so you're not really going to be using this guy early. And in the late game, right, there is some value. You can buy a battle cry, use his ability, then sell it, and then but it's like a worse version of brand, essentially.
Yeah.
That you have to pay for. I mean, it's and has no early game benefit, which is really, I think, the key weaknesses of a lot of the heroes.
Sure.
Right now, if you had if they don't have any early game, you'll lose heavily to the heroes that do have early game power. So, not really too happy about this guy's hero power. Maybe if you could choose where to target it, or it costs 0. But I think if it costs 0, it'd be like really strong. So I think if you could choose where to target it, then I think there's hope there, because then you could like stack a cleave unit or a Divine Shield unit or something you're going to keep for the rest of the game. But since it's random, and it doesn't have any early game pressure, I don't think there's too much hope for him.
Interesting. Oh, cool. So in tandem with these heroes coming in, they decided to cycle out some of these heroes. Some of them I'm a little sad about. Some of them I just don't care. And feel free to comment on it. And I'd be interested to know your thoughts on maybe why you thought they chose these particular heroes. But they cycled out King Mukla, Giant Finn, Maleficent Manastorm, Lich Bazial. What do you think? Do you think you have any thoughts about maybe why they cycled those out as opposed to some of the other ones?
Okay, so definitely they cycled Manastorm because it was by far the strongest. Very easy to play, had an insane win rate. Just like mechs are too strong at the time, so easy cycle there. They'll probably return them when mechs are like a little bit more balanced, after a couple changes. But at the moment, definitely makes sense. It was kind of an easy no-brainer. Let's take the mech. King Mukla, I think they might have picked him because he might have been really good. I'm not pretty sure if he was like top tier, but if you use them correctly, stacked a bunch of since you could target the bananas, you could stack a cleave unit. Usually, you'll just buy Cave Hydra, and then you'll just stack the Cave Hydra, and then bam, it's an insane cleave. But that might have been why those two were taken out. The Lich whatever her name is.
Bazial.
Bazial, yeah. She was too complicated for most people, and so she had a pretty low win rate. Not because she was particularly bad, but because a lot of people would just tap till they die.
Yeah, right.
They would end up killing themselves really fast. Like, it's very, like, she's one of the heroes where you can lose super early because you're killing yourself and then not gaining enough value to warrant, right? So she probably had a ton of 8th place finishes. They looked at their data. They said this is like by far the worst hero, apparently, because people were playing her bad, not because she was bad. And they were like, all right, let's remove her. Giant Fin, I don't know why they removed. Giant Fin's the weirdest one, I think. Out of all the choices to remove, I think why they removed him is because, like, similar to Jiraxis, I feel he kind of baits you into a specific style that might not win you the game a lot. So you play Giant Fin, you're like, all right, let's go War Leaders, let's go Murlocs. I'm dead. Unfortunately, so. I think they were like deciding between him and Jiraxis. They flipped the coin. They're like, let's remove the Murloc one. We'll probably be seeing them in the future, especially once they add the Murloc synergy and the Demon synergy and stuff like that, and they balance some of the other cards. You'll probably see them again, but that's probably the reason why they removed those.
They probably kept Jiraxis because they wanted to see if the buff to his hero power was actually going to make any difference. So. I don't know. Did you think the buff to Jiraxis has made any difference? I don't know that it made a huge amount because it still baits you into one of being demons only. And
it hasn't done anything. 2 mana to buff demons. I think it's okay. It's not bad. No. But it's not good. So it's probably like average tier. So that's probably why they didn't touch it, because it's like, oh well, I mean, it wins some games.
It just, unless you can make the demons just ridiculously big and you don't face any poison, it's hard to win. You know,
if you've got 2 amalgams, sure. I mean, you can buff amalgams for 2 mana. I mean, that's a card.
But that's kind of like isn't that kind of every single like class? Like, oh yeah, amalgams. Yeah, it's going to do what I want it to do.
It's 2 mana for a +2/+2 if you have 2 amalgams, where you buy like a battle cry dude. It's the same. It's 3 mana. It's 3 gold for the same ability. So it's not bad if you have 2 amalgams and maybe 1 demon, right? 2 mana +3/+3. I mean, it's not bad.
Cool. Well, let's see what else. Let's see. So in the minions, they did a little bit of tinkering with like the tiers and power levels and stuff like that. So let's just take them off here. Looks like they moved Void Lord from being a tier 5 minion down to a tier 4 minion. If I'm understanding it right, I think they wanted
Void Lord was 6 to 5.
6 to 5. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread. It's Primal Fin Lookout was moved from tier 5 to tier 4. My bad. Thank you. I misread my show notes. So Primal Fin Lookout moved from tier 5 to tier 4. What do you think about this one? Just what you think, it wasn't really powerful enough to be a tier 5? That was my take on it.
I think this one is fair. Like, it means you don't, if you're playing Murlocs, you don't have to force 5.
Yeah.
What you could do is, like, if you get a combo or a triple at 4, and you get Brand, then you could just stay at 4. Because then you have Primal Fin, you have the Poison Giver at 4. You've got the and all the buff Murlocs are under 4. Right. The only thing is, like, maybe if you get another triple, you could level to 5 and then hope that you can hit the 6 cost the Murloc buffer and then go from there. But it basically means if you're running Murlocs, you don't have to go to 6. I mean to 5. So it's
that makes sense.
It adds a little bit more consistency to the Murloc strategy.
No, that's cool. And now the back to Void Lord. Void Lords moved down from 6 to 5, and do you think it's because again demons aren't inherently strong and they wanted to give us a little more
It did
strength
not
to it, or-
deserve to be 6. I don't. I think when they were playing in like their own testing, they had no like amalgam synergy crazy that we've developed.
Sure.
They just had like, oh, I'll just play demons, and they'll win with demons, and they're like, oh, demons are so strong,
Right.
in their own preliminary testing, and they're like, oh, let's put Void Lord to 6 because demons are strong, and then they give it to the actual audience, they give it to the like streamers and stuff, and they're like, what is demons are useless.
Yeah, right.
And so they're like, I guess, maybe Void Lord is unjustified. Definitely was not a 6 tavern level card. Even at 5, I don't really see it doing too much. I don't think it changes like the demon metagame. The issue with demons is that there's like a set power to them. They you get like a juggler, and you get like a Mal'Ganis, and then a Void Lord, and then that's like, that's like your full combo. You've hit your power spike,
Right.
and
Right.
like the people with like Light Fang or the people with like Brand and stuff, they're still scaling forever, and you're stuck at that power level, and then you end up like getting outscaled and dying. So
Yep.
don't really feel like the Void Lord does anything.
Well, it always felt like a trap card to me. So, you get to that tier 6 and you're like, ooh, you're offered Void Lord, but you're offered something else. And you're tempted to pick Void Lord, especially if you're like me and you're a constructed player for a long time. And you know how powerful Void Lord is in constructed, but in Battlegrounds, so what? It dies. It doesn't really kill anything because it only has 3 attack. And maybe it's buff, but then the 1/3s that come out, yeah, they might let you last a couple more trades, but it's just, it doesn't have the power of being able to string together, death rattles with buffs and all the stuff that you could be doing instead of that. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Go ahead.
I think the benefit of Void Lord being 5, it's possible to get like a tier 2 Void Lord maybe, and then maybe like a tier 2 Void Lord giving out. It sounds like 2 6s or something like that. With like a Mal'Ganis, that's like a 4/8. Like that's like that's like some kind of a card. So
that's kind of the dream for that card, if you can do it.
No, even then, I still think you probably lose, but you lose slower. Yeah,
you might last another round, so maybe
another round or something.
Instead of
like
8th place, you're 7th.
I think you can get like consistently like 3rd with demons. If you don't force demons and you like the demons are given to you, and you don't try for demons, you're like you're given all the demon pieces. Maybe you go 3rd or something like that.
Yeah, that's been my experience. When I had to hunt for demons, then it was a bad time. But if I was just kind of given the right ones, kind of almost automatically, I always did better. That's cool. All right, moving down. This one was, now we're getting into some of the nerfs. Or this is a nerf. Junkbot got moved down from tier 4, or moved up from tier 4 to tier 5. Makes perfect sense because
it does.
Junkbot at tier 4 was just dumb.
It meant that you could stay on 4 for Mechs and never have to go move up to 5, and you could just win from 4. And it just made Mechs super consistent because once you hit 4, all of the good Mechs are there, and you don't have to do anything else. So you can, it being at 5 means that there's another option at 5. Usually at 5, if you get like a triple at 4, you could hit Light Fang, you hit Brand, you can hit Junkbot, and then those can like decide, okay, what direction am I moving with my deck. So I do think that this Junkbot being at 5 is a good nerf, respectable nerf, and don't mind it whatsoever.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. In particular, that particular card, that particular one. All right, let's see here. Moving on. And if you're, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what we're talking about in terms of some of these cards, then play a lot more, because then I'm going to be releasing some more primer information for how to deal with some of these things. So I'm glad all these nerfs happened before I got to like which minions are the best ones to pick. So Cold Light Seer, it got moved down from Tavern 3 to Tavern 2. So thoughts?
This
Good,
one is
bad?
like kind of the weirdest one because it's like I don't think it needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Core Light Zero is fine at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't really need it at 2. The best thing about this being at 2 is that it buffs Murlocs because now there are more Code Light Seers in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Since there's a limited amount of units, I believe at 2 they have 15 of them, where at 3 they have 13. All right, so now there's 2 more Code Seers in the game just permanently. So if you're running Murlocs, you have a higher chance of seeing Code Seer, and if you have like a brand and things like that, uh, it really buffs the amount of times you can hit the Seer and then buff and buff and buff. So it's kind of a big nerf to big buff to Code Seer. I don't think it's needed. I think Murlocs are kind of okay, especially when they add the new Murloc card. But I'm not really complaining. So
Yeah, it seems like I hadn't really thought about the pool being bigger, but yeah, it seems like Murlocs could be stronger and probably last longer in the late game if you can pull more Cold Light Seers and then abuse the battle cry mechanic and stuff like that. So maybe they just live longer. Be good. So that's kind of all the nerfs and buffs and all the most recent changes to Battlegrounds. I'd like to transition over now and get into sort of the MMR conundrum that we've kind of been all just kind of complaining and griping about. Because and maybe Collins, maybe you feel this way or not. Maybe you didn't because you're a much better player at this than I am. But when I started playing, I didn't realize how the MMR was going, and so as I learned the game, of course, I made obvious mistakes and started. Once I started figuring it out, I just started steadily climbing. But the climbing rate felt a lot arduous. So after, I think when I first started, I dropped down to like 3,600, 3,700 MMR. And then I spent a week and a half climbing up to 4,500. So I climbed almost 1,000 MMR, but it was a bit of a grind, just kind of hanging out and just doing that over. You win first place, you get maybe 50 MMR if you're lucky, but probably not even that as time wore on. So there was the big conundrum in the community, and everybody was kind of complaining. Anybody who didn't do immediately well was basically, they were kind of sandbagged. Yeah. And I read you published a great article on Reddit, kind of sort of just pointing out this issue, and just wanted to give you a chance to kind of talk about it, and then we can kind of talk into some of the adjustments they made. If you think if they're good, if they need to be different, if it's enough, or do we need to just keep it near to it? So, what do you think? So, to kind of tell us your take on the MMR issue.
So when it came out, I definitely played a lot and kind of immerse myself, as we do sometimes, in new games and things like that. And I kind of realized there was like an issue very quickly. The first games, if you win, you gain like 200 points. You climb so fast. You're like, "Whoo, this game's amazing! I'm winning. I'm climbing." Then at some point, 50, 60 games in, you win a game and I'm getting like 40 points for a win, where you're getting 200 points for a win, and you realize it doesn't feel as good because you're not gaining anything, and quickly goes down to like 20 points for a win, and the same thing with losses, right? You lose a game, you lose 20 points, so you realize you're stuck. You're not really moving. It doesn't feel that you can catch up to people or do anything like that because at 20 points a game, when people are initially making 200, if you are like 1,000 points away or 1,000 LP away, that's like 50 wins in a row, which is unreasonable.
Right.
Just when the other player hasn't even played that many games or has that many wins themselves.
Sure.
Somehow you have a ginormous gap because they happen to win the first games comparative to the games when you're fighting against higher ranked players. It really didn't make sense to me. So as well as I was looking at the leaderboards, I realized a lot of the people in the leaderboards were the people that played the first day when people were new and didn't know what they were doing, and two of the people in the top 5 were employees of Blizzard, right? Meaning that they had play tested the game before, and they kind of knew more strategies in the first days before the others. So I realized that if this MMR system continued, people would play. They would reach a point where they felt stuck, and then they would stop playing. So I was like, that sucks, because this game is actually pretty decent, pretty fun. I was having a lot of fun with it. So I made a Reddit post just how trying to get them to take a look at their MMR system and see if they could change some stuff. It kind of blew up essentially, and I was able to talk to some of the designers for the MMR system, so I got to actually talk one-on-one about their system and why I feel it's not really useful. So we had a lot of good back and forth there, and glad to see that they did change some things with the recent patch.
Did they kind of offer any kind of insights as to why they chose to do it the way they did it initially? Like with such a severe reward for early wins and a severe punishment for early losses?
Yes, because by what I heard, or I'm paraphrasing, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to explain their philosophy in a valuable way. So my explanation of their philosophy probably won't be accurate, and they'll probably be like, that's not really what I said. So take this with a grain of salt, and I don't speak for them. Sure. But from what I heard, their system is kind of designed to figure out how good you are as a player, and then get you there as quickly as possible. So it's like, all right, you've played this many games. We kind of understand how good you are. All right, bam. We found your bucket. We found your bracket. You're there. And then, eventually, in a perfect system, you wouldn't move at all, because they'd find your level, and then that's your level, right? Because you've hit it, and then if you lost, well, that's fine. That's still in your level, so you just gain 0. But they said eventually maybe they were it gets too confident too quickly, where you very quickly start gaining only 20 points, right? After a couple of games, it's kind of locked you into your bracket, right? So they kind of said we can change it to be a little bit more flexible, where people can kind of climb as they play more. It's not locked in very quickly. So that's kind of how their philosophy was working.
So it sounds like you're saying the way they kind of set the parameters for how I'm going to say the brain of the game works, as I said, basically it figures out maybe a little too quickly. It assesses too quickly where it thinks you should be, when maybe it's just that you just haven't figured out the best strategies and options.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're learning the game on an account and you lose the first couple of games, it's going to think you're horrible, right? And you'll lose 200, 300 LP immediately. And then you're basically screwed, because even if you're trying to climb, by the time you've hit the 50 game mark, you're only at 5K or something, and you're kind of locked there for the rest of the game, for the rest of your time playing. Whereas if I argued if you made a new account when people are also new and learning, then you would beat the people that are new, and then you'd climb relatively higher than you're supposed to be, and you're now stuck there because you've played as many games, and you've beaten the people before they got good, and now they're good. You're now losing, but since you're barely losing any points, it doesn't really affect your MMR at all. So it's that kind of system. It kind of punishes you too much for the first couple games. And it kind of locks your ability to climb after you play a certain number. So that was something, and it's hard. It's hard, because
if you think about MMR, it is just a number, and we play. In theory, we play games for fun, right? We sit down and we want to say, "Is the game fun?" Do we want to play? But then there's always that thing, and Blizzard is great at this, where somehow we put so much value and importance on. I need to see marked improvement. I need to see the orange legend crystal with a tiny number on it, or I need to see a 12 key, or I need to see that MMR number getting above 5,000. Okay, now I want to see that MMR number up above 6,000, and yada yada, and we go on and so forth. It's like, yeah, but did you have fun when you played it?
I had fun when I won, and when I'm the best. That's
right.
It speaks to different types of players, right? There are some players that play just for fun, right? But there are a lot of players that are like I want to be, top 200. I want to be top 50. I'm gonna climb. You get those type of people as well. So it just speaks to different type of gamers.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's interesting that they said, yeah, your MMR is going to stay the same once Evening comes out of beta. So if you jumped in at beta and you started playing when they released the game, quote unquote, out of beta, you're still the same. It doesn't change. What do you think of that? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought they were going to reset it, but apparently they're not too comfortable with that. They might consider, from when I talked to them, they might consider soft resetting it. So like not like a full reset, but maybe like drop people down to like brackets or so, depending on how high they were or not. But I mean, I think with the changes they did to the MMR system, it's a lot easier to climb. So it's not like drastically bad now, and everyone can play already. So
yeah.
It's not too bad, but I thought they were gonna reset it, but apparently, maybe not. I don't think it matters too much, anyways. Especially with the changes, like the MMR, like people's MMR is gonna swing rapidly now, so there might be a little bit more balance in like the next week to see where people actually stand.
Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about like what the new changes are. So in the most recent patch, they said they made adjustments to the number of points given for first place. In the original system, you got 240 points for your first place on your first game. So if you are a god among men, so to speak, and you nail that first place win, you are in a different tier.
It wasn't 240. It was 228, by the way.
Oh, okay. They're not even telling us the truth. And then 24 points for the first place on your, say, 150 or 150th or later game, right? Now they say that you'll get 190 points for your first place on your first game and 95 points for a first place on your 150th or later game. So that's pretty drastic.
I don't think I think it feels pretty good.
You think it feels good?
I'm in the second bracket, the people that have played 150 games. Mm-hmm. So it feels a lot better. Like I can actually continue climbing instead of being stuck where I am. So and it also means that the first games aren't like a death sentence. Like let's say you got 8th in your first game, you lose 250 points.
Yeah.
Like that account is screwed. I'll be honest.
Right.
I'll be honest. Right. Like it's not gonna climb to 6-7K. Like the amount, like you have to win the first place just to come back, and you'll still be like under 4K. Mm-hmm. And then you have to win another like first place to start climbing. Where a person that won their first 3 games or like first, second, first, right? They're like so far ahead of you in terms of their potential end results. So this adjustment means that even if you lose the first games, it's not as drastic. You can continue climbing, and even in the later stages after you've hit the 150 games, you're not punished as heavily to continue climbing. You can still run your same account. Before, I have a lot to talk about on this, right? But before, when you hit that, like it wasn't even 150. It was like 80 game mark. Like whatever place you were at is basically you're stuck there for the rest of the time, unless you became a god and beat everyone. Because at that ranking, you're fighting people who are also pretty decent. It's at the first matches, right? You're fighting against 4K or somewhat similar. So those matches are like fairly easy compared to the matches you play at the end game where everyone is like actually skilled in some capacity and they have a game plan that they're following out, right? So you get so much benefit from winning those first matches against like newer players or people that aren't particularly skilled, and then if you're beating other people like at 7K 6K MMR, oh boom, you get 20 points. It's like it really didn't make sense that you get punished for beating the good players and you get heavily rewarded for beating the people that you're supposed to beat. So it was just it was a weird system, and I'm glad they changed.
I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, why should you not get very rewarded for beating a really good player?
Basically when I'm playing, right, there's like a streamer in every game if I'm playing in regular times zone, right? Because all the streamers are like high MMR, right? And you're fighting 8 different people, right? So there's like a skilled player or two, in every single game. And then even if you beat everybody, here's 20 points, where you can make a new account, beat a bunch of randoms. Yeah. And get 220, 200, 200, 200, start climbing immensely. And it's like, because I just didn't understand it, so I had to speak up.
That makes a lot of sense, though. And I think it's an important thing, as I think one of the points in your article was that, if people feel like they can't climb, like if their time invested is just going to be sort of meaningless, then the game is just going to lose a lot of traction, a lot of following, and I mean, like I was thinking about it the other day, like I was looking at the leaderboard, Tides of Time is over 8,000. Like, and when you look, and I look at my MMR, I'm like 45, 46, something like that. And I'm like, man, that just seems impossible, to go from under 5,000 to, or even
when you're
5,000.
making 20 points a win.
Right.
It does. It does feel impossible because you're just not climbing. But
I think 100 for a win, and then all the gradation in between that seems like if I want to put time in, I could do that. Versus no, I have to I have to quit my job and I have to just basically play Battlegrounds 24/7 and that kind of thing.
But Tyus is gonna hit he's gonna be 10K.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So maybe not him, right? Maybe you can get to second. That guy is actually like pretty incredible. So
yeah. And and I think he, like you said though, like once he kind of hit that mark, it's kind of like he's not only an amazing player, but the way the setup is going to kind of aid him to kind of
he was locked at first. Yeah, exactly. He was pretty much locked at first.
So, opinion question. So, what do you think about Blizzard allowing now I'll preface this. I believe it was Korra and Chalky, right? Korra and Chalky are very good players at Hearthstone, just in general, like across the board. They know the game. They were good before they ever worked at Blizzard. So I'll preface that. What do you think about them kind of letting their own people sort of be kind of on their own leaderboard? What do you think about that, just in your opinion?
Personally, I don't really care.
You don't care?
Actually, no, I don't care. It's like, it's more competition. Sure, they had a head start because they had development time, but I think after the changes to the MMR, in order to keep their standing, they're really gonna have to play again. Like that before, when with the initial setup, they were able to beat a lot of the new players and get this inflated high MMR that was very hard to topple unless you were able to replicate that success. Now you can actually climb, and so if you put some time in, you can actually climb over their rating. So it's not too important now. If they wanted to keep it, they're gonna have to continue playing and continue winning. Right before this MMR change, there was kind of mixed feelings because they're there because, first of all, they are very good, but second of all, they were able to play during in a period where people were still learning and people weren't as mechanically or technically good as they are now, and there was an MMR system that once they hit that rating, it's hard to implement to climb past them. They're kind of locked there. Like they couldn't lose that rating even if they lost like 10 games in a row. They're still like top 10 for sure. Like so, it didn't matter if they got worse or better. Now, if they wanted to continue being good, they have to show that they're still good versus players now. So I don't really care too much anymore or at all. I never cared, but there's less of a reason to care now.
Okay, that's good perspective. I didn't really know what I thought specifically about it, but I could see how it could, like you had said, mixed feelings. Like, well, is this okay? How do we feel about this? But I think you're right. The changing of the MMR system to kind of suit everybody does force people who have been in the top tiers. They do have to keep playing in order to maintain that, because there's going to be somebody who is willing to, sit at their computer or on their phone or whatever for, hours and hours and hours and hours to try and get those spots. So
that's what streamers do, man.
Well, and that was one of the things that I immediately noticed as I got concerned, is like, people who stream for a living in a game like Battlegrounds automatically have an advantage because that's what they do for a living. A person like me, I play for fun, I play casually, I play, at night after I put my kids to bed, and I don't have even 2 hours a day to sit down, really, a lot of times, to sit down and play any video game, let alone like a streamer who can get up at, at 11 in the morning and stream for 12 hours. It's like, there's just no possible way to compete with that.
I mean, that's in every game, though. Right. It's just unfortunate. Like, it makes sense, though. Like, the people that can put, like, that crazy amount of time in, right, they have that edge. But it's not impossible for incredibly skilled player to do well too, right? Like, it's not impossible. If you win pretty much all your matches, right, you will be competitive, right? Because like, the thing about streamers, they play a lot of games, right? They win a lot, but they also lose a lot, right? So they're kind of fluctuating, but skilled players will still be presented, right? They will still show up in the leaderboards because they have that high win rate. And especially once the stats come out, you can kind of see, these people have like really good win rates with this class or with this stat and things like that. So it's not impossible, but it is kind of the nature that the streamers and the people that spend a lot of the time playing, right, they will have that experience edge and they'll have that time edge over the other people that don't have that much time and experience.
Do you think, given that set of circumstances, do you think that having like a flat number with a rating, do you think is that the best way to convey skill in terms of Hearthstone? Do you think they should keep it that way? Do you think maybe there's a possible, even if you don't know what the alternative would be, do you think there's a possible alternative that maybe they could go to for ranking or like showing of skill in the game? Because they're going to drop stats and you might have a really excellent win rate for maybe playing 100 games, but maybe that still doesn't matter because you haven't played 1,000 games, like a streamer would have.
I mean, there's always a better system, right? I don't know but with that, right, I think a lot of systems are similar to the system we have now. There is like a number, but usually it's like hidden or something like that, and that's kind of how they're during their like matchmaking, things like that, and stuff like that. I don't know what a change would. I'm pretty happy with the current change, maybe because I am a streamer and like I can take advantage of that time. But that is something to be looking for in the future. I don't know if they're thinking about that right now, right? They're probably like, we've made this change and like people are happy and they haven't really thought about making a new change. But I think it becomes more possible if they have like soft resets periodically, right, where things get a little bit more balanced, right? Let's say someone's like 10,000, right? If they get reset a little bit down to a more manageable, then you can like say, okay, this time I can spend some time trying to climb and be competitive, right? But like if you have trouble like playing as much games as them, then I mean it's going to be tough, like no matter what game you're playing, to reach that upper echelon.
That's true. So do you think, I don't know if they've said it or not, do you think that they'll try to offer rewards for certain levels of play for Battlegrounds? Is that even feasible? Like, you know, like you make Legend, I mean, you get a card back, you make past rank 5, you get a pack with a golden epic card in it. You know,
sure, I mean,
what do you think?
I don't know if they've, I mean, I think they'll probably add that. I don't know if that matters too much, to be honest. Like, what are you going to use that card back for?
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, I guess you could see the cards when they're discovering things. I guess maybe in maybe in like the little side pocket on something. But I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, you know, what do you use that for? And then, you know, Blizzard has said things like they don't want to set the bar too high, because then people feel like they have to achieve a certain number or whatever in order to get the thing that they want to have. And oh, great. So in order to get the reward, I have to play for 6 hours a day, you know, and they've said that they try to avoid things of that nature. But anyways, man, it's been a good discussion so far. Anything you wanted to add to that related to the subject at hand that I didn't ask you about or whatnot?
I'm just glad that they were listening to the community.
Yeah,
definitely felt that it was needed. I could just see the issues. So I'm glad they were willing to recognize it and then accept it. Also glad that they're making changes relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes Blizzard can be stubborn in terms of like, this is the game, and you're gonna deal with it for 3 months. See you in the future. And they looked at the stuff and they're like, okay, this type of game mode needs kind of freshness, I would say, from time to time to keep people going. So I'm glad they're recognizing that and making some changes. So there's a lot to be happy about in terms of Battlegrounds. When it comes to Constructed Arena, you know, I will turn a blind eye for now. But in terms of the Battlegrounds development, it's pretty good to see.
Awesome, man. Well, I think that that's a great note to end our discussion here today. Educated Collins, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
It's pretty fun, honestly.
Hey man, talking shop is why we do this, right? I mean, it's just it's a good time. Hey, before we sign off here, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you, your stream, where they can find you on the interwebs?
Usually I don't do it. I just say, if you want to find me, you'll find me. But I mean, yeah, it's Educated Collins on Twitch and YouTube and that kind of thing. And sometimes I show up in other people's streams and stuff like that. But
well, I'll do you one better, and I'll put your link in the show notes. So in the notes on the podcast.
That would be useful, I guess.
So anybody who listens to it can just click and then just head on over there. If you want to follow me for any reason, anybody, just look me up on the internet. You can find me at WatchmanHS on Twitter. That's the best place to get me. You can head over to VelensChosen.com if you want to find links to our Discord, Patreon, anything like that. Special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters, and especially Pseudoping, Jamie S. Thank you for all the support you've given us over the years. We're very much in your debt, if you want to think of it that way. But anyways, if you're on the Battlegrounds grinding ladder, or you are playing in Shaman world of Constructed, or if you're trying to play an arena and wondering why that seems to be the most neglected format at the moment, as far as news is concerned, just remember.
What about Wild? Let's not talk about Wild, but the Wild players, they're crying.
Yeah, I'm a Wild player, and I play a lot of Wild. In fact, I play mostly Wild. But no, Wild is it needs some love. Let's just put it that way. But I won't. That'll be a different show. I'll get my boy Slizzle back on, and we'll discuss that one. Anyways, just remember when you're dealing with good and bad times in Hearthstone, just remember not all who wander are lost. Thanks, everyone.
I foresaw this.
Did I miss it?